Don't worry, man. Just leak the script. AI will handle the rest. Disney axed Star Wars sequel The Hunt for Ben Solo without ever asking about the budget or other details, says Soderbergh. And it's insane, and we were all frustrated. Don't worry, Steven. We're all frustrated too. Steven Soderbergh is continuing to open about his Adam Driver starring scrapped Star Wars movie, The Hunt for Ben Solo. In a new interview with BK Mag, the Oscar-winning filmmaker said it was no surprise to read Kathleen Kennedy's Lucasfilm exit interview and hear about her frustrations over Disney axing the Rise of Skywalker follow-up movie, which would have brought Driver back as the fan favorite Kylo Ren Ben Solo. I don't know how they would do a follow-up movie, but I mean, I guess no one's ever really gone. You know, I feel like the sequels were just so disjointed and messed up that, like, are we really going to be like, oh, wait, how did Ben Solo return? I think there's bigger fish to fry. And if we do ask that question, or they do in the movie, they can just be like, somehow, Ben returned.
People are going to love the new me.
We were all frustrated, Soderbergh said. You know, that was 2.5 years of free work for me. And Adam and Rebecca Blunt were the writer. When Adam and I discussed him talking about it publicly, I said, look, do not editorialize or speculate about the why. Just say what happened, because all we know is what happened. The started reason was we don't think Ben Solo could be alive. And that was all we were told. And so there's nothing to do about it, you know, except move on. Yo, but they bring back Palpatine. Even when George Lucas said Palpatine's dead, like 1 million times. He said that to Ian McDermott, and it's just wild to me that Disney wants to do all of these things. They want to make all of these massive decisions going against George's sequels, going against George's story in general on these characters. But the one thing that I think would have been unanimously appreciated, I mean, yeah, okay, there's a lot of people that like really hated the sequels. Look, I did too. At one point in time, I thought they were okay. But I can tell you, I would have enjoyed a Ben Solo movie. I do think Kylo Ren and Ben Solo were, you know, arguably probably the best character that Disney has come out with for the sequels.
Perhaps Leader Snoke should consider using a clone army.
I thought he had a lot of range. I thought they was perfectly cast. I thought Adam Driver did a phenomenal job. And I would have liked to have seen where they would take his character and to actually see it explored, because they didn't do any of that in the sequel trilogy. I'd kind of made the movie in my head and just felt bad that nobody else was going to get to see it. Well, don't worry, dude. You should release the script, leak it online, and then I'm sure a lot of Star Wars fans out there will use AI to make it happen, just kind of like they're doing now with Colin Trevorrow's Episode 9 Duel of the Fates. And it looks absolutely phenomenal. The director continued, I thought the conversation was strictly going to be a practical one, where they go, what is this going to cost? And I had a really good answer for that, but it never even got to the point. Disney asking what it would cost for their main sequel trilogy character, or, you know, I would say their second main sequel trilogy character, bringing back Ben Solo, and they know that so many people will appreciate. Heck, I would even go see it and talk about it and all that stuff, because I want to see more about Kylo Ren and Ben Solo. He was really the only good character of the sequel trilogy, and I say good lightly, compared to everything that we got in that mess. And I thought he was by far the best actor. So just release the script, leak it online, or leak pages. Oopsie, how did this happen? And then all of a sudden you're going to have fans bringing it to life, and your vision will be seen. You're not getting paid for it, you're not getting appreciated for it anyways, but at least this way, the fans will appreciate what you did, and they'll make it come to life. It's crazy they paid $750 million for Andor, 2 seasons of Andor. It's crazy they paid $250 million for The Acolyte. They only gave $90 million to Kenobi. Imagine that. And then they gave $176 million, I think, for the Mandalorian and Grogu movie. When Solo, I think, got $500 million, it was like $250 million twice, because they scrapped it at the end of the first one and then redid it. And I think every other show after that got more money. So to me, in my head, I'm wondering, you know, why not go for this? Just at this point, it can't be worse than The Acolyte, I'll tell you that much.
The power of...
And then maybe you could use it to explain some of the disjointedness of the sequel trilogy entirely. Like I said, it can't get any worse for the sequels. Driver revealed the existence of The Hunt for Ben Solo in an October 2025 interview with the Associated Press, explaining he had been developing a Ben Solo movie for 2 years with Soderbergh. Then Disney executives pulled the plug on them. I always was interested in doing another Star Wars, Driver said at the time. I had been talking about doing another one since 2021. Kathleen Kennedy had reached out. I always said, with a great director and a great story, I'd be there in a second. I loved that character and I loved playing him. And he did a great job with the, garbage script that was given and his lack of clarity on where his character is going to be headed. He did a great job acting. And the same thing goes for Daisy Ridley. I mean, I don't think she acted very well, but also how could she, considering they were switching up the script, every few months or maybe even few weeks. She didn't even know where Rey was headed until the very, very end of The Rise of Skywalker when they decided to randomly bring Palpatine back. They didn't decide to bring Palpatine back until halfway through The Rise of Skywalker, which is wild to me, or at least some point while they were filming it, according to her and her interview with Josh Gad. The Hunt for Ben Solo's script, calling it the standard of what a Star Wars movie should be and comparing it to the handmade, the character-driven feel of The Empire Strikes Back. He added that Lucasfilm execs Kennedy, Dave Filoni, and Carrie Beck backed the project until Disney shut it down. We presented the script to Lucasfilm. They loved the idea, Driver recalled. They totally understood our angle and why we were doing it. We took it to Bob Iger and Alan Bergman, and they said no. They didn't see how Ben Solo was alive, and that was that. Well, Disney doesn't need to know any of the story beats. They're just essentially the executive producer. They're just funding projects. But they decided to give $250 million to Leslie Headland for The Acolyte? Come on. It's insane. They decided to give $750 million to Tony Gilroy for Andor. Listen, regardless of how much people may like Andor, $750 million is the most they have ever paid for any Star Wars project. And when you compare it to Kenobi, are you telling me that Andor should be getting more money than Obi-Wan Kenobi? Ewan McGregor, Hayden Christensen. That's almost 10x, where Kenobi got $90 million. Andor, season 1 and season 2 get $700+ million? I don't think that makes sense.
It's not fair.
And then they want to start to count pennies with making a sequel trilogy sequel with Kylo Ren, a underutilized character that otherwise could have been a really great one and told a great story. Well, I guess that could be said for all of their characters in the sequels, but came down to the writers. I don't think that Disney should be giving the check mark or the X to anything. I think they should just see what Lucasfilm wants to do, what direction Lucasfilm wants to take it, and just write the check. That's it. That's what they need to do. They need to stop meddling in what they think should happen or shouldn't happen because it hasn't worked out so well. Now, that doesn't mean that everything Lucasfilm throws at them is great either. Obviously there's a lot of issues there, and now that Kathy's gone, we're maybe going to be able to see that the fog has cleared, and perhaps there's going to be better movies and shows out there, and games, for instance, but time will tell on that. However, this, I would have liked to have seen it, and I think that it was a big mistake that they didn't give this a chance. And Daisy Ridley talks about it. She says that she knew a piece of it. I heard rumblings. I have lots of friends who are the crew, so things always travel like that, but whoa, when the story came out, no, I was like, oh my God, and it was him that said it. It was funny because, wow, Adam is saying it, and that's the big surprise of the year. Yeah, I think it would have been good. I think it would have been fun. At the very least, it would have explained some of the disjointedness of the sequel trilogy, I hope. I hope they would have taken from all of the criticism, and they would have been like, okay, we need to maybe patch up some things, which honestly shouldn't have happened anyways. It should have been a properly written sequel trilogy, but when you have something that's a burning dumpster fire that was a sequel trilogy and how it was handled, you have to create more projects afterwards in order to explain it instead of just leaving it a mess and then explain crap in the books, which arguably nobody really reads compared to the actual watching of the film. Let me know what you think. Would you have liked to have seen a Kylo Ren movie after Episode 9, even though they killed him? Or do you just not care and you think that they should have just left it to burn? Have a great day. See you in the next video. May the Force be with you always.
Now, fulfill your destiny.